something I previously said about it becoming a challenge that people don't really understand what we're building. And
Right.
like specifically, like, so it's one thing to understand what we're building. And let's just say we get over that hurdle. Like we somehow are able to communicate very well, like this is what we're building, and people are like, okay, I get it. The next thing is making the game approachable. And historically, it wasn't. You needed a really high level of skill to play the game to a decent competency, because there's like a lot of stuff in machine learning that's very difficult to overcome. Like there's this concept of catastrophic forgetting where you teach it one thing and then the next training session you teach it something else, but it forgets the previous thing, right? And so these were like real machine learning challenges that gamers had to figure out how to solve basically, which is not easy. And so the biggest challenge is the onboarding, because like I mentioned before, once we saw that people are able to teach their AI something successfully, that's where it gets very sticky. And so how do we get from the point of them trying the game to that sticky point? And historically, there was a massive gap there. And so we had to feel like we had to figure out, okay, how do we close this gap, make the onboarding as smooth as possible, and make it just like almost like a smooth transition from onboarding to testing to getting the basics to getting really good at the game. And so we've done a series of things to hopefully close this gap. One of the big things we did was we made a simplified model that
Hmm.
was able to learn more quickly, but it was able to learn a simpler subset of things in the game. That certainly helped a lot to get people that historically struggled to train to getting really good at the game. But that didn't solve everything, because still a lot of people, even from starting the game to that point, there was still a gap, right? So
Right.
maybe that closed it halfway. And so we recently rolled out an in-game tutorial to basically teach them about the concept of training a fighter, right? And so we rolled it out, at least for some testing. It seems to be going well. We'll see when we roll it out to a lot of people in the open beta, but that
Right.
has certainly been the biggest challenge, because this type of game is so new, right? Like no one really gamifies machine learning training. And so not only is the communication like difficult, but also people playing the game was difficult historically because they didn't really understand these mechanics. But we're hoping to make it more mainstream going forward.
Right. Yeah, but I think as you mentioned that one of the biggest challenges that you guys perhaps face is it would be difficult for anybody to a layperson to understand exactly what you're building, and because you already are facing this challenge and you foresee this in the future as well. You taking up a specific content strategies as well to perhaps simplify what you guys are doing and creating a lot of content around it?
Yeah, we're trying. So we're trying a lot of different things. Um, So there was like a series that I used to do like on Fridays. It was called Get Good with Guppy. Guppy
Okay.
is my like my nickname online. And basically I would spend like an hour live streaming in our Discord about how to do certain things in the game. Um, and that worked great for core community members that already knew how to play the game, but they wanted to learn how to refine their strategy and do certain things. Um, I really love those because I would also get to talk about math and like machine learning optimization in it. So I would show them how to do something and I would explain why it works. But I don't think that is great for the general public. I don't think the general public cares about calculus and like how it relates to games. But and so we're trying different things to make the onboarding easier. Um, they were made different introductory videos, making short form content, but right now it's just a matter of trying different things and seeing what sticks.
Hmm.
um, I don't think we have the number one solution yet, but we're certainly trying things and hopefully we'll find something that works great.
Right. Yeah, it's about iteration, I think, ultimately, even if you find something that does take, after a while, it'll change, and you'll have to be dynamic with your approach to this.
Exactly. Yeah.
These yeah, these particular sectors and niches, they're very dynamic in themselves. There's something new happening every day, and you will have to be right in the eye of the storm to make sure that you guys are able to reach the requisite user base that you are potentially looking at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree.
So now moving a little macro and talking about the space in general, you've been a part of this sector for some time. Are there any platforms that are to do with Web3 gaming, or which are utilizing perhaps AI in the gaming space? Are there any other apps that you feel are really doing a wonderful job, and you want to take perhaps a few pages from their book?
Not really. And I'm not saying that just to say like, oh, we don't have competitors. Because I think we do have a lot of competitors, but not in the traditional sense of they're doing what we're doing. It's more competitors for mind share.
Right.
Um, but I think there's certain aspects of different platforms, not necessarily like Web3 gaming or Web3 AI, but just more so in the Web2 space, to be honest, that we're taking inspiration from. So obviously our core game is a platform fighting game, so we're taking a lot of inspiration from most of the platform fighters, but more broadly on the AI side, um, specifically like actually Numerai was a huge inspiration for us. I don't know if are you familiar with Numerai by any chance?
No, you would have to enlighten me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Numerai is basically a data science competition. Um, they administer their own token, NMR, and basically what they're doing is they're opening up a competition for data scientists to predict the stock market. And then they kind of take these predictions and aggregate them and trade them in their own fund. But it was the concept of machine learning researchers and engineers competing against each other and earning this token, which is largely where I drew inspiration from. It's essentially we're applying it to a game, but that's where I drew inspiration from for machine learning algorithms competing against each other. Because at the end of the day, if someone were to say my machine learning algorithm is more valuable than this other one, we need some way to administer this comparison, and competitions are excellent way to do this. And so yeah, we took a lot of inspiration from what Numerai is doing, although they didn't apply it to gaming. They are sort of this intersection between machine learning, competition, and Web3.
Wow. Very, very exciting, very interesting as well. Brandon, I think I've completely lost track of time because what you're building is so interesting, and it comes with a lot of new concepts that I had to assimilate over this particular recording. So I completely lost track of time. It's already a little over 40 minutes that we've been talking now. I would love to though ask you two last questions before we wrap this up. One
Sure.
being, what is the kind of advice that you would like to give to, or perhaps point folks in the right direction who are trying to perhaps get into AI and gaming? If not like advice, but if there are resources that you would recommend
Hmm.
that they can look at.
Yeah. So I think it depends um, how deep they want to go. And are you specifically asking about people that want to use AI for building games, or just in general AI in gaming?
I think a little bit of both. It's
Mm,
more interesting that if somebody's using AI for building games, then yeah, those
mm.
resources would be more niche. But even just folks who are looking to add AI to the gaming platform that they have, are there good resources that you would recommend? Obviously your platform being one, but right now it's not open for public yet.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I'll answer the question more from the sense of people wanting to get into AI to aid in game development. I think the low-hanging fruit type of advice I would give, which um, is not really like I don't think adds value because everyone would give this, is basically like just learn how to use these tools for prompting, or just learn how to like use like like an API, right, to connect to like an LLM that you can use in your app. But my advice is going to probably differ from that. So I'm a massive advocate for learning how to do things from scratch. And this is the advice I give everyone that does machine learning and they work for me, both now and previously when we were at the fund. Um, but for example, I don't even allow people to use a machine learning library
Hmm.
unless they first show me that they can program the entire machine learning algorithm from scratch.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because you will never understand why something is not working unless you understand from its core how it works, right?
Right.
And I think that's very important for applying machine learning to gaming as well, because I can't even tell you the amount of like things we had to overcome just to even learn like know how to apply ML to our specific gaming environment. Like it's not like you just take a neural network, plug it into the game and it works. It
Hmm.
will be a disaster, right? And so you have to understand a lot of the idiosyncrasies about how the machine learning algorithm not only performs like inference, but how the training actually happens. Why why is this thing called catastrophic forgetting happening? Why are why is my policy so skewed when I'm just playing the game normally? Because don't understand how basically human dexterity works and how that affects data collection, right? So there's all these things that compound on each other. And if you don't really understand the machine learning algorithm to its core, you will never be able to solve them. And so my advice would be, and probably a lot of people don't like hearing this because it's like 10 times more work, but it's to really go from the fundamentals,
Hmm.
understand how the machine learning algorithm works at its core, and then you can start applying it. But that's only if you want to do something novel, right? If you
Right.
just want to apply like OpenAI's like ChatGPT to your game, like you don't need to do that. But if you want to truly do something novel, that's certainly my recommendation.
Yeah, I think that those are like, very foundational recommendations that kind of go across all sectors. That if you really want to build something innovative in any space, then you really need to understand how the ins and outs of that particular space work. You can't,
Absolutely.
right? You can't really be doing just a simple copy paste. That'll not get you the
Mhm.
results. And if you want to build something, truly visionary in nature, then you have to get your hands dirty. There is no way around it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Brandon, now moving on to perhaps the last question, and this is a bit of a philosophical question. I would love to get an answer or perspective from you. How do you balance out, the two aspects, like creativity, human creativity, as well as the AI and ML aspect? Uh, while it is being utilized in this ever evolving gaming space. I understand that obviously you can train these models, and that is essentially what you're trying to do, but there has to be a balance nevertheless, I think. And what is your perspective on that?
So I just want to make sure I understand the question fully. So by that you mean in this like ever evolving like landscape where like people are using AI more and more to create things, are you saying human creativity starts to become less and less important because we rely on AI?
Yeah, and like how do you balance it out? Because we are
Mm,
enabling humans to actively shape the future of AI together, right? That is what we are doing
mm,
at what you are building. So how do you strike a balance between human creativity and AI technology, say in your projects? And
mm.
what is your perspective here?
Yeah, so my view of creativity might differ from others people's view of creativity. So I think personally in our game we are enabling a lot of creativity. Let me expand on this. So I'll try not to get very, very technical, but like you can imagine like you drop an AI like in like on a new planet, right? And let's just say there's like a treasure somewhere and it has to find that treasure. And so it has to start exploring to find that treasure.
Right.
That's what kind of machine learning training is, right? Where you have this thing that we call randomly initialized. So it doesn't know how to do anything. You randomly drop it somewhere, and you have this treasure, which is the optimum. We call it the global optima. And it has to find that. And this global optima is the place where if your model gets there, it learns exactly what you want it to learn, right? And it's never a straightforward path to get there, because in machine learning, specifically neural network training, there's this thing that we call it the loss landscape. It's very non-convex, which basically means there's all these bumps and these troughs, these hills. And so your AI has to navigate through all this to get there. And a lot of times it can be more an art than a science in order to teach your AI basically how to get there. And so the creativity in machine learning training comes into play, where it's like, okay, I'm in this situation now. What can I come up with, right, to enable my AI to navigate through this lost landscape to get to this global optima, which is the treasure, right? And so what you see in our game is people coming up with these really novel training strategies, whether it's how they collect data, how they mix various things like oversampling, and how they have changed the hyperparameters. And you start getting like really like creative ways to come at the problem to teach to your AI how to do something. I think a lot of people that aren't in machine learning training just think it's this black box, which kind of it is, but they think it's just you let it run and it does its thing. But there's actually a lot of stuff involved behind the scenes. And so what we're hoping to do with our game is to show people like it's actually really interesting, and you can try all these different things to teach your AI how to do something. It's not just a straight path to get there. And so I personally think that's where a lot of creativity comes in.
Hmm.
Um, of course, I also think like there's a lot of creativity in like coming up with like um, like loss functions, and like I think there's a lot of creativity in mathematics as well. A lot of people probably look at that and be like, this guy's out of his mind, because most people associate creativity with more like of the arts, right? Like,
Right.
um, but anyway, I know I was rambling for for a long time, um, but yeah, I think the concept of creativity could change over time, where it more so turns into how do I work with this AI, machine learning algorithm, whatever, to achieve the objective that I want to achieve, right? Rather than it's only me trying to do this, it's now me and the AI trying to do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're trying to say is that AI is going to only complement perhaps the human creativity and help, give you another layer, perhaps, in the way you are approaching a problem statement.
Yeah, yeah. I think for most people, yes, but yeah, exactly.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brandon, for taking out the time to speak to me. Before we wrap this up, do you have any last thoughts about Web3, AI, gaming as sectors, and anything for the entrepreneurs who might be building in this space? Any advice?
So, obviously, on those sectors and specifically the intersection of them, I'm obviously very optimistic about. um, Otherwise, we wouldn't be
Yeah.
building in these, or
Yeah.
maybe we would if I just like pain. But no, I'm certainly very optimistic about all these sectors, and specifically for building, for people building in these. Any advice I would just say, like, um, might be difficult at times, but certainly try to ignore the noise. I think it's very easy to get caught up in especially like during like the bear market, and when you're on Twitter, people are putting out FUD. It's just important just to ignore it, right?
Yeah.
Um, Tune it out and just build, and eventually people will come around um, when you have something to show for it. I think that's just the best advice I can give, is just keep building. And yeah, ignore a lot of the garbage that's out there on social media.
Yeah, I think that's very, wonderful advice. And that's the way to go about it. Just keep building, keep your head down, keep building. We build something substantial and market it well. The traction will come, the users will come, and the validation will come as well. But it's not going to happen unless, you get your hands dirty and in the space. Take some action, basically.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brandon, for taking the time to speak to us today. This has been a wonderful conversation. What you guys are building is super fascinating. I can't wait to try it out. Once again, really grateful that you could make the time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.